There is a moment, quiet, invisible, and often overlooked, where everything you will ever become is decided. Not in the loud declarations, not in the applause of others, not in the validation of the world, but in a silent decision. A decision so small it could be dismissed, yet so powerful it can reshape the architecture of your entire life. It is the moment when desire stops being a wish and becomes a command. Most people live their lives mistaking curiosity for desire. They say they want success, but what they really have is a mild interest. They say they want wealth, but what they really carry is a passing thought. And thoughts without fire, without obsession, without relentless emotional charge, fade like smoke in the wind. But desire, true desire, is different. Desire is not polite. Desire is not comfortable. Desire does not ask for permission. Desire demands. It presses against your mind when you try to sleep. It interrupts your peace when you try to settle. It whispers in your ear when you attempt to accept less than you were meant to become. And if you listen closely, you will realize something most people never understand. Desire is not something you create. It is something you uncover. It has always been there, buried beneath fear, distraction, and the conditioning of a world that taught you to play small. And the moment you decide to stop suppressing it, the moment you decide to let it breathe, it transforms, it becomes power. Not the kind of power that dominates others, but the kind of power that commands your own mind, because everything begins there. Your mind is the only territory you will ever truly control. And yet, for most people, it is the very thing they have surrendered. They surrender it to doubt. They surrender it to comparison. They surrender it to the noise of other people's expectations. They allow external voices to become internal limitations. And then they wonder why their lives feel restricted. But understand this with absolute clarity. No external force has the authority to limit you unless you grant it access through belief. Belief is the gatekeeper. Belief is the translator between desire and reality. What you believe, not what you wish, not what you hope, but what you truly accept as possible, becomes the blueprint your mind uses to build your life. So if your belief is weak, your results will be fragile. If your belief is uncertain, your actions will hesitate. And hesitation is the silent killer of greatness. It is not failure that destroys most people. It is delay. It is the endless cycle of almost starting, almost committing, almost becoming. But power does not live in almost. Power lives in decision. A decision so absolute that it cuts off every path except the one that leads forward. When you decide, not casually, not temporarily, but definitively, that you will rise, your mind begins to reorganize itself. You begin to notice opportunities you once ignored. You begin to take actions you once feared. You begin to think in ways that align with your future rather than your past. And this is where transformation begins. Not outside you, within you, because the world you see is a reflection of the world you have accepted internally. Change the internal, and the external must follow. This is not theory. This is law. The same way gravity pulls objects downward, your dominant thoughts pull your life in a direction. And if you do not consciously choose that direction, your environment will choose it for you. That is why clarity is not optional. Clarity is power. To know what you want, not vaguely, not generally, but with precision, is to give your mind a target. And a mind with a target becomes dangerous because it stops wandering. It stops reacting. It begins to focus. And focus is the bridge between potential and achievement. Look around you. Every structure, every invention, every empire began as a clear vision in someone's mind. Before it was built in the world, it was constructed internally, brick by brick, thought by thought, belief by belief. And the same process is available to you. But there is a cost. There is always a cost. Clarity demands honesty. It demands that you strip away illusions and confront the truth of what you truly want, not what others expect of you, not what seems safe, but what sets your soul on fire. And that can be uncomfortable, because the moment you admit what you truly desire, you can no longer hide from the responsibility of pursuing it. You can no longer blame circumstances. You can no longer justify an action. You either move forward or you consciously choose to stay where you are. And that choice is yours, always. But here is where most people falter. They find clarity, they feel the spark, they experience the initial surge of motivation, and then they wait. They wait for the perfect moment. They wait for the perfect plan. They wait until they feel ready, and in that waiting, the fire fades, because desire without action decays. It weakens. It loses intensity. It becomes another abandoned idea buried under the weight of hesitation. But when desire is paired with action, it multiplies. Every step forward reinforces belief. Every small win strengthens conviction. Every moment of progress fuels momentum, and momentum is where power becomes unstoppable. Because once you are in motion, resistance begins to break. Fear loses its grip. Doubt loses its voice. Excuses lose their credibility. And you begin to see something extraordinary. You were never lacking ability. You were lacking movement. Action is the great separator. It is the line between those who dream and those who build. And it does not require perfection. It requires commitment, messy action, imperfect steps, uncertain beginnings, because clarity does not come before action. It comes through action. You refine your path by walking it. You sharpen your vision by pursuing it. You discover your strength by testing it. And with every step, something shifts inside you. You begin to trust yourself, not based on empty affirmations, but based on evidence. Evidence that you can act despite fear. Evidence that you can persist despite difficulty. Evidence that you can create results through effort. And that trust is the foundation of discipline. Discipline is not punishment. It is not restriction. It is self-respect in action. It is the ability to do what must be done even when you do not feel like doing it, especially when you do not feel like doing it. Because feelings are temporary. They fluctuate. They deceive. They respond to comfort rather than growth. But discipline is anchored. It is stable. It is reliable. It does not negotiate with excuses. And when you develop discipline, you remove the need for motivation. You no longer wait to feel inspired. You act because you have decided, and that is where real power begins to take shape. Because a disciplined mind cannot be easily distracted. It cannot be easily discouraged. It cannot be easily defeated. It continues relentlessly, not because it is always confident, but because it is committed. And commitment transforms effort into identity. You are no longer someone trying to succeed. You become someone who does not stop. And there is a profound difference between the two. Because when success becomes part of your identity, your actions align naturally. You no longer debate whether to work. You no longer question whether to improve. You no longer hesitate when faced with difficulty. You respond with strength, with clarity, with purpose. And purpose is the fuel that sustains everything. Without it, discipline becomes exhausting. Without it, action feels meaningless. Without it, success feels empty. But when your actions are connected to a deeper purpose, every sacrifice gains value. Every struggle gains meaning. Every setback becomes part of a larger story. Your story, a story not defined by where you started, but by what you chose to become. And here is the truth that most people avoid. The path to power is not comfortable. It will test you. It will challenge your patience. It will expose your weaknesses. It will force you to confront parts of yourself you would rather ignore. But that is not a sign to stop. That is a sign you are evolving, because growth is uncomfortable by design. If it were easy, everyone would achieve greatness. But greatness requires transformation. And transformation requires friction. You must outgrow your old habits. You must release your old beliefs. You must step beyond your old identity. And that process is not gentle. It is intense. It is demanding. It is relentless. But on the other side of that transformation is power, real power, the kind that cannot be taken from you because it was built within you. And once you possess that power, wealth becomes a byproduct, not just financial wealth, but wealth of mind, wealth of character, wealth of opportunity. Because wealth is not created by luck, it is created by alignment. Alignment between thought, belief, and action. When your mind is focused, when your belief is unshakable, when your actions are consistent, results become inevitable. Not immediate, but inevitable. And that is where patience becomes your greatest ally. Because in a world addicted to instant gratification, patience is rare. People want success quickly. They want results without effort. They want rewards without struggle. But anything built quickly can collapse just as fast. True wealth, lasting wealth, is built over time, through persistence, through consistency, through resilience. And resilience is forged in adversity. It is built in the moments when things do not go your way. When progress slows, when obstacles appear, it is in those moments that your true strength is revealed. Do you stop or do you continue? Do you retreat or do you adapt? Do you surrender or do you rise? Because every challenge carries a hidden opportunity, an opportunity to become stronger, an opportunity to become wiser, an opportunity to prove to yourself that you are capable of more than you imagined. And when you begin to see challenges not as barriers, but as training, everything changes. You stop fearing difficulty. You start embracing it. Because you understand that every obstacle you overcome increases your capacity. And increased capacity leads to greater results. This is the cycle. Desire ignites action. Action builds belief. Belief strengthens discipline. Discipline fuels consistency. Consistency creates results. Results reinforce desire. And the cycle continues, growing stronger, expanding further, reaching higher, until one day you look back and realize that the person you once were no longer exists. You have evolved, not by accident, but by decision. And that decision began with a single choice, to turn desire into power, and power into wealth. But the journey is not finished, because there is another level, another depth, another transformation waiting for those who are willing to go further, and most will never go further. Not because they lack intelligence, not because they lack opportunity, not because they lack resources, but because they reach a point where growth demands more than they are willing to give. There comes a threshold, a line invisible to the eye but undeniable to the spirit, where the comfortable version of you must be abandoned entirely, not adjusted, not improved, not slightly upgraded, destroyed, because the person who wants success and the person who creates wealth are not the same individual. One hopes, the other executes. One waits for alignment, the other becomes alignment. And to cross that threshold, you must confront one of the most dangerous illusions ever accepted by the human mind, the belief that you can rise while remaining the same. You cannot. Transformation demands identity death. It demands that you release the habits that once felt like home. It demands that you let go of the excuses that once protected your ego. It demands that you walk away from environments that once validated your limitations. And yes, that will feel like loss, because in many ways, it is. You are losing familiarity. You are losing comfort. You are losing the version of yourself that made life predictable, even if that predictability kept you small. But understand this with absolute certainty. You are not losing yourself. You are shedding what you were never meant to carry. And what replaces it is something far more powerful. Because as you evolve, your relationship with effort changes. What once felt like sacrifice begins to feel like necessity. You no longer ask, do I feel like doing this? You ask, does this align with who I am becoming? And when the answer is yes, you move. Immediately, decisively, without negotiation. This is the birth of mastery. Not mastery of a skill, but mastery of self. Because the greatest victory you will ever achieve is not over competition, it is over hesitation. Hesitation is subtle. It disguises itself as logic. It presents itself as caution. It whispers reasons that sound intelligent but lead to inaction. Wait until you're more prepared. Give it more time. Make sure everything is perfect, but perfection is a mirage. And time does not reward hesitation. Time rewards movement. It compounds effort. It amplifies consistency. It multiplies action. Every day you delay, you are not standing still. You are moving backward, not because you are losing ability, but because you are losing momentum. And momentum, once lost, requires force to rebuild. That is why decisive action is not optional. It is essential. When you feel the pull to act, act. When you see the opportunity, move. When the path is unclear, step anyway, because clarity is not found in waiting. It is found in motion. And as you begin to live this way, something remarkable happens. Fear begins to change. It does not disappear, but it transforms. Instead of being a barrier, it becomes a signal that you are approaching growth, a signal that you are stepping beyond your current limits, a signal that you are on the edge of expansion. And when you learn to interpret fear correctly, you stop running from it. You start moving toward it, because you understand that everything you want exists on the other side of what you have been avoiding. The conversation you've been postponing, the risk you've been calculating, the decision you've been delaying, that is where your next level lives. And the longer you avoid it, the longer you delay your evolution. But the moment you face it, you reclaim power, because power is not the absence of fear, it is the ability to act despite it. And every time you do, you strengthen something deep within you, something that cannot be taught, something that cannot be borrowed, something that must be built. Inner certainty, not arrogance, not blind confidence. Certainty, the quiet, unshakable knowing that no matter what happens, you will find a way forward. That certainty is priceless, because once you have it, external circumstances lose their control over you. Success no longer makes you complacent. Failure no longer makes you quit. You remain steady, focused, unmoved by temporary outcomes, because you are committed to long-term transformation. And this is where adaptability becomes your advantage. Because the path to wealth is never straight. It twists, it turns, it surprises. What works today may not work tomorrow. What succeeds in one season may fail in the next. And those who cling too tightly to a single approach often break when conditions change. But those who adapt, those who learn, those who adjust, those who evolve, they continue, because they understand that the goal is not to protect a method, it is to achieve a result, and results require flexibility. They require awareness. They require humility. They require the willingness to admit when something is not working and the courage to change it. This is not weakness. This is intelligence in motion, because rigidity is the enemy of growth, and growth is the foundation of wealth, not just financial wealth, but intellectual wealth, emotional wealth, strategic wealth, the kind of wealth that allows you to navigate complexity, to solve problems, to create value, because at its core, wealth is not about money. Money is a result, Wealth is about value creation. The more value you can create, the more wealth you can attract, and value is born from understanding. Understanding people, understanding needs, understanding opportunities. It is the ability to see what others overlook and to act on it. And that ability is developed through learning, relentless, intentional, continuous learning, not passive consumption, not surface-level knowledge, deep understanding, the kind that changes how you think, the kind that reshapes how you see the world, the kind that sharpens your decisions, because your decisions determine your direction, and your direction determines your destiny. Every choice you make, where you spend your time, what you focus your energy on, who you allow into your environment, it all compounds, it all builds, it all shapes the trajectory of your life. And the difference between those who rise and those who remain stuck is not chance. It is choice. Consistent, deliberate, aligned choice. And alignment is the hidden force behind extraordinary success. When your thoughts are aligned with your goals, when your habits are aligned with your vision, when your environment is aligned with your growth, progress accelerates. Resistance decreases. Clarity increases. Execution becomes natural. But when you are misaligned, when your actions contradict your intentions, when your habits undermine your goals,
when your environment pulls you backward,
you struggle, you feel stuck, you feel frustrated, you feel like you are working hard but going nowhere. And that frustration is not a sign to quit. It is a signal to realign, to examine your life with honesty, to ask yourself difficult questions. Are your daily actions moving you closer to your vision or further from it? Are your habits building your future or maintaining your past? Are the people around you supporting your growth or reinforcing your limitations? And once you see the truth, you must act on it, even when it is uncomfortable, even when it requires change, even when it demands distance from what is familiar. Because alignment requires courage. The courage to choose growth over comfort. The courage to choose discipline over distraction. The courage to choose purpose over convenience. And those choices, repeated consistently, create transformation. Not overnight, but inevitably, because transformation is not an event. It is a process of becoming stronger, becoming sharper, becoming more focused, becoming more capable. And as you continue through this process, you begin to notice something extraordinary. The things that once felt difficult become normal. The discipline that once felt forced becomes automatic. The effort that once felt exhausting becomes energizing. The standards that once felt high become your baseline. And that is when you know you have changed, not temporarily, but permanently. Because you are no longer operating at the level of who you were. You are operating at the level of who you have chosen to become. And from that level, wealth is no longer a distant goal. It is a natural outcome, because you have built the internal infrastructure required to sustain it. You have developed the mindset. You have strengthened the discipline. You have refined the strategy. You have become the kind of person who produces results consistently. And consistency is where greatness lives, not in occasional bursts of effort, not in moments of inspiration, but in daily execution, the quiet, often unnoticed actions repeated over time. That is where power compounds. That is where wealth is built. And that is where most people fall short. Because consistency is not exciting. It is not glamorous. It does not attract attention. It requires patience. It requires persistence. It requires faith in a process that does not always provide immediate feedback. But those who embrace it Those who commit to it, they separate themselves, because while others are starting and stopping, they are continuing. While others are distracted, they are focused. While others are waiting, they are building. And over time, that difference becomes undeniable. Because success is not a single moment. It is the accumulation of thousands of decisions executed with intention. And every one of those decisions brings you closer or pulls you further away. So choose carefully. Choose consciously. Choose in alignment with the person you are becoming. Because that person is your future. And your future is being built right now.